Hello, Sam Waller, and today I'll be doing an evaluation and review of Bad Girls the Musical. Bad Girls the Musical is set in it's based upon a prison drama and TV series in the early 2000s, 2006 to 2007. It's based in a female prison, Lockhouse. Um, Basically, the musical is basically taking characters from the show and putting them in different narratives, but the key core principles are the same. Bad girls, why they're in prison, why are they there. The plot of the musical is pretty much discovers basically how the innards of the prison works, why these prisoners are here, what their stories, what their backgrounds are. For instance, Shay Dockley is in there for murdering and torturing a woman to death for basically jealousy because this woman was messing around with her man, and as she says in her song, no one messes with my man, go away with their face intact. She is basically Fenner's spy in the female prison, and they basically have a deal, pretty much eyes and ears, and if you let me have sex with you, I'll give you awards and purchases. Basically, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Nikki Wade is in prison for basically killing a policeman for raping her girlfriend. She's in prison for life, but basically the circumstances of her case, could potentially get an appeal to be released. Helen is the wing governor. Justin, Sylvia, and Jim are the main prison officers with actual named roles. Justin is the one who actually likes Helen and believes in Helen. He's not corrupt like Sylvia and Jim Fenner. Fenner is basically he wants Helen's position. He wants to take control, and he goes to number one, who is the entire governor of the entire thing. He's a politician who oversees and oversights the basic management of the prison. So it's basically people can come, basically maintaining orderable structure. But pretty much he's a bit of a sexist slob, and he basically doesn't like Helen for her gender. And Jim doesn't like Helen for her ridiculous ideas of how to treat prisoners, because he basically wants to treat prisoners as they are, pretty much in their eyes, scum. And pretty much the themes of the play are pretty much, why am I here? I shouldn't be here. This is not my life. I had plans, I had dreams, but one stupid decision, I'm in here for a sentence. And one of the characters who is at the beginning of the play is Rachel Hicks. And Rachel was taken from her daughter for drug use. She was put in prison for that. And Fenner basically puts her under his wing, and she's a bit naive. She's like a fish out of water. She doesn't belong here. She doesn't feel like she wants to be here. None of the girls want to be in prison, for fuck's sake. Pardon my language, for bloody hell's sake. So pretty much what these girls are basically forced to do is basically feed, wash, clean the prison, as well as attempt to go for an appeal and change their ways. But Fenner doesn't want that. He basically just treats them as his personal prizes. So basically, all of Act 1 is basically establishing your characters, the plots, the dramas, the themes of the play, until near the end of Act 1 in the scene The Keys, when Fenner sings his song about what he does during his night shift. And it basically shows you how pretty much corrupt and vile the system is, and how women in prison are treated. Yes, it's an exaggeration, but what happens is real. Things like this have happened, it's fact, it's documented. But no, prison guards are not singing about raping prisoners. It's a bit overplayed for dramatic effect. The gist of the story is, near the end of the song, Fenner visits Rachel in her cell. Basically, she gives him a note to explain how she felt about him. He begins to read it, trumps it up, throws it away, and then proceeds to rape her. And then after he rapes her and he leaves, she kills herself in the cell. Next morning, they find her dead, and how the officers handled it was very inhumane. They called her a swinger or a stiff, dead. They have no real respect about what Rachel did. And the female prisoners are so appalled by this, they start a prison riot. And obviously they were all rounded up and shoved in their cells, and they're angry and so outrageous about what happened and the fact that it was covered up by number one, and Helen almost lost her job because of Fenner basically orchestrated her downfall, because Helen and Nikki have a relationship in this play, and Fenner used her unusual unprofessionalism with number one, basically giving him all his notes and information to number one in a toilet scene, basically summarizing how grummy and slimy these people really are. The officers, the people who are in positions of power and care for these people, who basically treat them like dirt under their shoe. And then obviously Act 2 is pretty much ousting Fenner and getting revenge and basically exploiting him for what he really is. Then Helen is re-promoted as head of the prison, and happy ever after. Okay, plot holes within the narrative and the performance in the play. The play's language is so very different and peculiar. It has not very good language. It's not very well written. The music scores are cheesy, but it's got humour in it for obviously a human effect. It's not all darkness and doom and gloom. But for instance, one of the songs, The Keys, Fenner is talking about treating these women like toys, like possessions. I don't care if they like it. I do what I want when I want. I'm willing to rape these people just because I can, because I have power over them. They can't do anything about it because I'm so well protected. But at the same time, though, if you just look at it at face value, see the humour, it's just a guy talking about his cock and then he proceeds to rape a girl. But if you really listen to the detail about what he's saying, it's really horrible. It's really like, wow, so many meanings. And another song, Jailcraft, is pretty much Fenner, basically the lengths Fenner will go to maintain power and maintain his version of how a prison should be run. Not the idealist ways and ways of helping these girls like Helen wants to do. Fenner basically just wants to treat them like his own personal hens. Keep them treat them like children, because they're scum, they're prisoners, they're not humans, not really. And one of his quotes, sliding up the greasy pole, or always preferring a shake of a hand, is pretty much in a toilet scene. He's pretty much shaking someone's urine-infested hand and seeing how the grime and grit and horrible that is. Pretty sums up Fenner's character. He's manipulative and charming and charismatic when he wants to put on charm, but what he really is a grummy, slimy sneezeball who basically was overthrown by alienating his own ally, and that obviously led him to be severely injured and then later imprisoned. And one of the inconsistencies with the actual narrative of the plot is Rachel the first one of what Fenner does? It's never really specified, because it doesn't make sense for a guy to just randomly rape a girl and then that's it. He must have done this before, and it's been covered up before, because people are, you're terrified if you're because you're taken away from your family, you're put into an environment with all other inmates of all different backgrounds and ethnologies who've done probably the same thing, or if not worse. Or maybe most of these prisoners really want to change their ways, but they can't, because they're stuck in this system of repeat. And that's the main tragedy of the actual kind of ideal of being in a prison. But what the musical does, it basically takes the actual black and, well, grit and grime and brutal reality and sheds humour in it, because you got the two Julies who's they're in there for basically theft and thieving and being, well, ripping people off for money, who actually have who actually are human because they have their own families. And the fact that they are in that kind of way because they want to change that. By the end, they think it's just a joke, but at the end, they want to get back to their families. For instance, one of the Julies has a son, and her main aspiration now, her main goal, is to get back with her son. And that's basically the main motivation of that character. Yes, they're women, they do have desires in fun and humour, and also sexual desires. And basically the song A-List, Life of Grime, and what's the other song? Oh, never mind. It'll come back to me. It's pretty much the fun and humour and basically jokey fun side, and showing how women can be seductive and funny and sexual in a position of power, because you can't have sex in prison. You shouldn't have sex in prison. You shouldn't be bonking a prison officer. That's not really how a prison should be run, but unfortunately sometimes things happen in prison. And that's why basically it shows you that you can have fun and do stuff in prison, but at the same time though, the actual reality is it's just basically to give you hope eventually for you to get outside of prison. What do I think was the massive inconsistency in the entirety of the musical, as well as the musical? The show has really good consistency with their characters. I think because the play is a 2-act performance, it really needed a 3rd act, because Dockley's turn on Fenner was so immediate. She doesn't pick up at first. It's like, well, he did this to me. I'm gonna basically burn him. Like, it's like, no, you've known him for a while. You know, that's a massive inconsistency and plot hole. And also Helen and Nikki's relationship, as beautiful as it is to see on paper and visually, but if you really look at it, it's just like, it's not really much there. So you're telling me that basically Nikki and Helen basically love each other in a span of 3 days. 3 days. That's a bit